Hey, good day everybody. My name is Jeff and I am the audio and video lead for St. Mark's Lutheran Church in Washington, Illinois. I want to welcome you today to our training video and thank you for watching. So today we're going to take a look at training for how to run the video camera that we use for our online services. This is a critically important role. As the camera operator, you are directly responsible for the quality of the video that we show online and the experience that people have. A lot of responsibility, but the good news is that it's actually fairly simple. And by watching this video, you will have all the information that you need to succeed on the first time. If you are watching this for the first time or you've never run the camera before, again, please watch the video entirely through. It will show you everything you need. If you're coming back, maybe you've not run the camera in a while, or you just need a refresher, check down below the video in the description field and you will see timings for each of the specific topics that we have. They'll help you to go to exactly what you need to see and give you the information you need. Again, thank you for watching today and enjoy the video. All right, let's talk about getting started and what to expect when you arrive. So first of all, if this is going to be the first time you've run the camera, please plan to be there about 45 minutes before the start of the service. And this will give us time to run through any final questions you might have, any final instructions, but also give you time to actually put your hands on the camera and check the motion and the zoom and things like that and give yourself a good final understanding before we actually go live. If you've run the camera before, 20 minutes is probably adequate. If you can be there 20 minutes ahead of time, again, that will give time for any final instructions and again, allow you time to get your hands back on the camera if you haven't run it in a while. When you show up, the camera will be set up for you, so you won't be expected to do any setup or anything like that. You'll also have a printed copy of the bulletin. And so you can spend that time, part of what you should do in that time before the service is reading the bulletin through, making sure that you understand the order of the service and what will happen and where people will stand. You can ask any final questions. Whether it's myself or whoever else is serving as the lead that day, we'll also spend some time with you to make sure that your questions are answered, but also to inform you of anything in this particular service this week that might be different from what we normally do on any other given week. So again, you know what to expect as you get into this. And with the remaining time, again, spend the time moving the camera on the tripod, checking the zoom, things like that, and just get yourself up to speed and confident. And that's really all there is to it. Next, we're going to take a look at the camera itself. We'll let you see the equipment and understand what you're going to see when you show up to run it. So stay tuned. So the next thing we need to do is take a look at the equipment so you'll understand what you will actually be seeing and using when you arrive at church. So there's several pieces to this system, more than just a camera, and let's take a look at each one of them and kind of walk you through at a very high level what they do so you understand what you're operating. So first of all, as would make sense, we have a camera and we have a tripod that it sits on. So the camera is a Canon G50 camcorder. It's actually a fairly high-end consumer grade camcorder that will allow us to shoot in high definition for our live streaming. We'll actually go up to 4K for ultra high definition in our recordings. It actually has a lot of different features and control that make it a really good choice for shooting in the church. The camera sits on top of a tripod, and the tripod will be intended to hold the camera still, so you don't have to physically hold the camera and try and balance it and try not to shake or whatever. The tripod will take care of all that and will allow you to move the camera, to move the shot very smoothly and slowly and get actually really professional results out of that. So if you take a look at the setup, between the camera and the tripod is this little red box, and the little red box has some cables that run into it. This is our audio interface. So we're going to take our sound from the soundboard, from the sound system here at St. Mark's. So as you may know, we've got a fairly high-quality professional sound system here. We run everything through it. All of our music, all of our pastor mics, any sound that you hear in a service comes through that soundboard. And because the quality is very good, we like to use it with our video. So if you take a look at that red box, there's some cables that come out of the front of it, and those cables go down to our soundboard on the stage and allow us to bring those signals in. So what does this red box actually do then? So it serves this purpose. The signals that come out of the soundboard electrically are fairly large. And what we need to run these into the mic input on the camera is something that's a lot smaller, and that's what the red box does. It takes the larger signals out of the soundboard and converts them down to something smaller that we can feed right into the microphone input or mic input on the camera. And if we take a look around the back end of the camera, we'll see the cable that goes up and feeds the output of the red box, the converter, up to the mic input on the camera. And the nice thing about this now is we have great quality sound and great quality video, and we marry those together at the camera, and so everything will be great from that point forward. There's one last part of the system that we've got. So again, we are running this camera from the sanctuary floor. The live streaming gear is up in the booth. So we could choose to run a really long cable to get the video out of the camera up to the live streaming gear, or we could choose to send it wirelessly, and that's what we're doing. And so that's what this final piece is. This is subject to change. We're still experimenting with the best setup, but this is what it looks like today. And what you'll see is a cable that comes out of the camera that's got our video and our sound signals. And they run to a little box with 2 antennas on the top, which is really just a transmitter, wireless transmitter. There's a matching receiver up in the sound booth that will catch that signal. And because of this, we don't have to run 50, 60, 75 feet of cable to get those signals up there. It makes life a lot easier. So again, we've got a camera and a tripod, a sound interface that allows us to use the sound from our sound system, and a wireless transmitter that allows us to send the signals out without a really large wire up to the live streaming gear. If you take a look at the position, you'll see that we are in the first pew, and that's where we set up the camera. As a camera operator, you'll set in the second pew, and that will actually, behind the camera, you'll be able to actually move it really well, move the tripod really well, and see what you are looking at from the camera, see what the camera sees. And so this is the basic setup that you'll see when you come in. So with that in mind, now we're going to take a look at a lot of the basic operation and just go through very simply, how do I run the camera? So stay tuned. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and talk about how you operate the camera. This is fairly simple, but there are a handful of small things that you do need to know on how to operate the camera. So first of all, let's talk about how to power up. Now in general, when you arrive, the camera should already be powered up and checked out and things like that. But if you should arrive and the display on the side is dark and there's no lights lit or anything like that, you'll need to turn it on. The power switch is located on the top of the camera. You move it forward into the camera position. The little green light will light up, and if you give it 4 or 5 seconds, the camera will initialize and you'll be ready to go. And at that point, the camera is putting out a video signal for our live streaming. So at that point, we would be ready to live stream if we chose to do that. If you want to understand what the camera sees, it's on that display that folds away from the left-hand side of the camera. And that basically is a camera's eye view of what it's looking at. And so if that is showing you the picture you want to see, you'll know you're zoomed in properly and you're pointed at the right thing. There's a lot of other information on that display. It does not appear on the video output. And there you may see a box that shows up around somebody's face, and that box is basically the autofocus box. You will not need to do any manually focusing of the camera. It takes care of that automatically on its own. Let's talk about how to move the camera. So if we look at the back of the camera on the tripod, there's a stick that comes off the tripod, and that stick is what we're going to grasp to move the camera back and forth. So we can change our shot from, say, a shot of the altar to a shot of a vocalist at the piano, for example. We can also use it to move up or down. So if we need a higher shot or a lower shot, we can do that as well. Fairly simple. You'll see a variety, if you look at the tripod, there's a variety of little knobs that you can turn to make that motion kind of tighter or looser. In general, this will be set when you come, but if the camera is not holding position, if it feels like you point it somewhere, you take your hand off the stick, and the shot starts to drift, it means that those knobs are probably not properly tightened. So just go ahead and tighten those up and try again, and you should be okay. The other big thing that you'll need to do with the camera is using the zoom controls. And the zoom control is located on the top of the camera. It's a switch that pushes forward or backwards. When you push forward, you are zooming in, and when you zoom in, you get closer to your subject. You see less of the things around, and your subject becomes bigger in the view. When you go backwards with that switch, or go back, you are zooming out. And so when you zoom out, your subject becomes smaller, less detailed, and you start to see more of the things around the subject. And so that is probably one of the controls you'll use most on the camera to zoom in or out of someone that might be speaking or singing, etc. And those are the basic operations that you need to know. Now, a couple other things before we leave this section that you should know. First of all, is in general, we don't record when we live stream. We live stream and we don't need a recording. However, if you do need to record, the button to start recording is around the back. You press that button and you're recording. And you'll know you're recording because you'll see a red light show up on the back of the camera, and you'll also see a red light show up on the top of the display, and that indicates that you're recording. Hit that button again, those things go out, and you stop the recording process. The camera, by the way, doesn't record on videotapes or little CDs or DVDs or anything like that. It records on SD cards, which you can then pull out of the camera and stick right into your computer. Fairly simple. The other thing you need to know is the sound meter. So in the lower right-hand side of the display, you're going to see a little meter that when the microphones are on, when everything is not muted and you're feeding sound into the camera, you will see the levels on those signals jump. So if somebody's doing a sound check, for example, before a service, you should see those meters jump around. During the service, you should see those meters jump around. If they don't, you should talk to your lead, talk to myself or whoever's leading that day, or talk to your sound person and make sure that we can test that out and ensure that you have sound. For the live stream, this is the only sound people will hear, the sound coming in from the soundboard. If that is off and you never see that sound meter jump on the display, it means that there is no sound on the video and that will not work out well. So by all means, if that doesn't seem like it's working, ask and we'll get that fixed before the live stream. The other question that comes up quite a bit with sound is we take our sound from the soundboard, as we said. So what happens if you're running the camera and you sneeze, you cough, you say hi to somebody, you bump the pew and it makes a noise? Does that show up on the video? And the answer is no. When we feed the sound in from the sound system, it basically turns the microphones on the camera off. So anything that you would do, unless it's loud enough to be picked up by the stage mics, it won't be heard at all. So no worries if you blow your nose, cough, whatever. In general, it's not going to be heard. And you don't need to fear because you're sitting close to the camera. In summary, that is really all you need to know to operate the camera. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at shots and how you will actually frame something on the camera and what makes for a good shot or a bad shot. But you now have the knowledge you need to know to operate the camera. So stay tuned and we'll get to shots next. All right, so we've just walked through how to operate and use the camera. And now what we need to take a look at are the video shots that you'll take to go ahead and be able to live stream the service, take the video that we need to live stream. So there's 4 basic shots that you're going to use, and these correspond to different parts of the stage setup where people may be preaching or singing or playing, etc. And we'll take a look at those in a second. But before we get into that, there are just some general guidelines to keep in mind as you look at how to take video and what the best ways are to do this. So first of all, you want to avoid shakiness if you can, and one of the sources of shakiness is through the tripod. So as you've seen from the setup, when we took a look at the overview earlier, the tripod is actually resting on the first pew. You'll be sitting in the second pew, but if you hit that first pew, if you kick it or hit it with your knee or with your hand or your arm, you're liable to cause the camera to shake because it's actually resting on that pew. So it's just something to be aware of and be careful of. You don't want to touch the pew too much if you don't have to, and if you do, you just want to do it kind of gently so you're not causing the camera to shake a lot. Shakiness is something that you really want to watch out for. If you think about maybe bad YouTube videos you've seen or a friend shoots a video where the thing is always in motion, the camera, or you're zooming in and out, it's just not the most pleasing thing to watch. So when you come to zoom or motion, oftentimes less is more. If you can get a good steady shot and hold it, that's actually better for the end viewer than something that's kind of constantly zooming in and out or constantly moving around the stage. So keep that in mind as you shoot, that you'd kind of like to understand where you're going to shoot and then kind of find that right zoom angle and find that right position of the camera and just really leave it there for the duration of that shot. That said, however, please feel free to be creative, and maybe that's point number 3. We're all learning this as we go, and each one of us, as we operate the camera, they bring something different to the party, and you may have a shot or an idea that, frankly, is just genius. And so again, with the idea of kind of limiting motion and zooming, if you think you've got a good shot or you think that zooming in or zooming out at a certain point would really make for a good shot, do it. And let's see how it turns out. And I'd rather that we experimented a bit and found really the best ways to do that. So let's do that if we can. As you move the camera or as you zoom, again, you're striving for smooth motion. So take moving the camera as an example. When you grab the stick on the end of the tripod, you're not wanting it to shove it really quick and then bring it to an abrupt stop. Again, when you watch that video, it won't be very pleasing to watch. What you'd like to do is grab it very gently, kind of have a nice, slow, smooth motion that just kind of ends. And so the camera moves gradually and it looks good. The same with the zoom. We've programmed the zoom on the camera to work at the slowest possible rate. So you'll generally tend to get a slower zoom, but those things are good. So if you can move the camera slowly and zoom slowly, that's really what you're looking for. Know when to expect motion. And so we're going to talk about shots in a second, but what you're going to see are there will be shots, for example, somebody reading scripture, where they're going to come up to the lectern, read scripture standing in the same place. And for a shot like that, you can zoom a little bit tighter. On the other hand, during the sermons, it's not at all unusual for the pastors to leave the lectern and walk around a bit on the stage. And so for that kind of a shot, you're going to want to zoom out a little bit, so no matter where they walk to, you'll have them in the shot, and without a lot of additional zooming and moving and things like that. We'll cover that in a second, but keep it in mind. On shots, if you know that there won't be a lot of motion, you can zoom a little bit tighter and have a better shot. Where you think there is motion, that's a bad idea. Just zoom out a bit and give it its time. And that's kind of the general guidance then on shot framing. One last point I'll make. If you take a look at this shot here of me, this is kind of what you're looking for. So you're wanting to not just capture somebody's head. You'd like to go down the body and have a bit more of their body in the shot. You don't want to be too far off, but you want something like this that doesn't just show a head or something very close up. If you take a look at the top of my head to the top of the frame or the top of the box that you're seeing, you'd also like to leave a little headroom as well. So you're not wanting to jam somebody's head across the top of the frame as you go up. In general, you'd like to capture some of the surroundings that somebody's in. If somebody's standing in a lectern to read scripture, you'd like to have some of that lectern in the shot. If they're up at a mic singing, you'd like to have some of that. If they're playing the guitar, you'd like to have the guitar in the shot as well. So think about that. It should look like they're in our church when they're playing. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the 4 shots that we've got, and we'll show some examples of these and kind of talk this through. Shot number 1 is really going to be the vocal area between the organ and the piano. So this is generally a soloist that will be singing. Somebody will be playing either the piano or the organ, and they're going to be singing along. In this case, the good thing about this is a very easy shot. The person will not be moving. In fact, if you go over and you take a look, next to the microphone in brown stage tape on the floor, there will be an X. That is exactly where they will stand. So you know where they will be. They're not going to move around when they sing, so you can zoom in on them a bit and have a nice shot and know that they're not going to be moving around all over. The bad news with this is it's a harder shot angle to make with the camera, because as you move the camera to focus on that area of the stage, the display will start to face away from you, and you will actually have to lean over the first pew to see the display. Again, once you get the shot zoomed in and where you want it and it looks good on the display, you can leave it alone and go back into the second pew because the person's not going to move. But the shot's a little bit harder to make. The second shot, related and very close to it, is at the lectern where we read scripture. We've got the Bible up there. Someone will come up to use this shot generally in the beginning part of the service to read scripture, and we won't oftentimes use that stage position again. Again, it's easy because someone will move up there, they'll be reading scripture, they will not be moving. Again, it's a difficult shot because you will also have to lean over the pew a bit to see the display, but again, once you've got it lined up and zoomed, you're going to be fine. We'll go to the other end of the stage right now, and that's the praise band area. So this may be just our worship leader singing a song solo, playing guitar, or maybe even keyboards. It may be a full band that we've got on stage. Again, the good news is you know where everyone will be standing. There is, again, an X marked where the worship leader will stand in brown tape. You can go up and look at that and figure out where that's at. People will not be moving around, and this is actually a fairly easy shot to make. It's a close shot. The display will be facing you when you're in the pew, and it's actually a very nice shot to make. And then last but not least is really the pulpit and the altar area. And again, this is the main stage area where most of the service will take place. This is where most of your shots will be. Again, it's an easy shot to make from where the camera location is at. You'll have a good view of the display. The thing, again, that will be challenging here is for parts of the service, people will tend to move around a little bit. And so you will want to make sure that as you zoom in or out, you're zoomed out enough that they can move around on the stage without you really having to touch the camera a lot. If you go up to the stage again, there are 2 marks in brown stage tape that kind of mark the sides of a rectangle, if you will. Between those 2 sides, draw a line across the top and it goes back to the altar. That's kind of the box where the pastors should stay. 99% of the time, they're going to stay in that box. And so if you can see that box and kind of zoom in ahead of time or know where that box is at on your zoom, you'll know that you can expect people will be standing in that area and it will be good. With other parts of the service, communion is a great example. The pastors will be behind the altar, and for that they'll be very stationary, and those are nice shots where you can zoom in a bit more. Again, this is something that as you come a little bit early, you can start to play around with a little bit, experiment with it, and feel like you've got the zoom the way you'd like it to go. Now, one of the questions that we get is we show things on the slides or on the projector. We may have a children's message, we may have a temple talk, stewardship video, etc. Do you have to video what's on the projector screen? And the answer is no. For both recorded services and the live stream, we will electronically insert those videos or those slides in. So there's no need for you to shoot video, slides, anything else that shows up on the projector. If you can stick to the action that's going on the stage, you will be perfect. You'll have it. One last piece of advice on this. That really is all you need to know about the shots. One last piece of advice, particularly the first time you do this, but even maybe thereafter, watch your video when you're done. So once this goes live streamed, it will be saved up to YouTube. Go back and watch it. And it is maybe the best way for you to understand how good did it actually look. When you were sitting behind the camera, it looked awesome to do that particular shot or that zoom or that motion. When you watch it, and I know I have, I'll find things that I liked a lot, and I'll also find things that I didn't like that much that I want to change next time. It's all part of the learning of doing this, and actually if you can do that, especially that first time, I think it's really important, and you'll learn a ton, and your next time will be even that much better. That's really all you need to know about operating the camera and shooting video. That's it. If you made it this far, you are fully trained on running the video camera for our live stream and recorded services. Thank you for your time to watch the video. Have fun with this, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. We all do, and we're all learning from this, and you'll learn too, and you'll be great at this. And again, don't be afraid to ask questions. Any question you have, there's no stupid question on this. If you don't know it, please ask and we'll get it resolved. Thank you again for being part of our ministry, and thanks for helping to bring our live stream experience to our online viewers. Have a great day.